She's Kylen Mills. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms. Add her name. It's super easy. Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild. Kylen, how are you doing? What's going on? It is the last day of July. Part of me thinks, wow, like where's the time going? The other part of me is hoping for like September, October, because I'm getting tired of sweating in my house. I am miserable right now. I hope it doesn't show on the camera, but yeah, I'm not comfortable in my own home, and I hate being in that position. So I'm conflicted. How are you?
No, I agree. And the thing that's crazy to me, we've talked about this before, is that so many places in the Bay Area don't have air conditioning. It still gets hot. Like I have also been very hot the last couple of weeks, but I also been very sleep deprived because I've been staying up late to watch the World Cup. So any World Cup fans out there, you know what it's like. The U.S. Women's National Team plays tonight at midnight. Can't miss that. And then there've just been a lot of games happening overnight. So that's the one thing about the World Cup. I mean, the Olympics are the same way, but I feel like with the Olympics, they do a good job of like planning. They re-air all of the broadcasts during like prime time. But for the World Cup, like you legit have to stay up overnight to watch a lot of these games. So
Right.
For soccer fans, it's a time of no sleep right around now with the tournament being played in Australia. So good, but getting ready for a late night to watch the U.S. take on Portugal.
Well, why don't you promote that right now? I mean, there isn't a whole lot going on with the Warriors. This is without a doubt the deadest time of year. Anyone who's like us, who's hosting a program, we're forcing this, folks. I mean, we're like, there is just nothing really new to promote. We're going to cover a few interesting things on the show today. But before we get into the Warriors talk, you're hosting a watch party tonight for the U.S. Women's World Cup team. Huge game, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, if they lose, they're out. So detail preview, go for it, Kylen.
This is the first time. Is it the actual first time? It's the first time in a long time. I'm trying to remember. I just read an article, but the first time in a long time, the U.S. could be eliminated in a group stage match. So it's huge. It's the last group stage match before advancing. Hopefully they face Portugal. If they lose, they're eliminated. But they like haven't faced an elimination group stage match. Gosh, now I got to find the article because I read it and I was like, whoa. But they're so dominant. They usually, never have an issue. Kind of like the Warriors, dynasty. But yes, hosting a watch party at PayPal Park where the San Jose Earthquakes play. So that's the only thing. Down in San Jose, Bay FC, the NWSL team that's going to be starting here in the Bay Area, I know is also having a watch party in San Francisco. So there's a couple going on around the Bay if you're trying to stay out late. But at PayPal, there have been good turnouts for the last couple ones. Of course, those were games that kicked off at 6 p.m. instead of midnight. So we'll see how it goes, the midnight kick. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun and, just an excuse to get out and watch the game.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch tonight. The stakes are very high. Daniel Reed, by the way, I'm glad he wrote this because I want to ask you this, Kylen. Daniel writes, are you watching Steph's series? I thought it was a movie. Maybe, I guess it's a series. I'm not educated on this. I was going to wait at some point to watch. Are you watching? It's called, what is it, Underrated? Am I mistaken on that? Are you watching this, Kylen?
I haven't watched yet. Have you?
No. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to try something new here, folks, on the show. I'm going to post a link to the chat. Daniel or anyone else, if you want to join the show right now and give us your recap of Stephen Curry's, again, I thought it was a documentary. Maybe it's a docu-series. I know nothing about it. I was going to watch it at some point. Daniel, click on that link if you want to jump in. Anyone else, if you want to jump in and just give your thoughts, the phone lines are open, folks. Just click on that link.
I thought it was a movie. I thought it was a movie.
That's
now
what
I'm
I thought
looking it
too.
up.
That's what I thought.
I mean, like a docu-style movie, but still, I thought it was just a one-parter.
That's what I thought. So that's why I'm hoping Daniel takes up our invite and joins in. And look, if anyone else has seen it or wants to talk Warriors, phone lines are open. And I'm saying that metaphorically. Obviously, click on the link in the chat. And we'll bring you on, man. Let's do this. Why not? While we're waiting to see if anyone wants to join us, I'm going to play this clip. Stephen Curry has been doing the rounds in terms of media. And he was on the Today Show, and he was asked a fun question, which is, who are your toughest defenders? And Kylen, before I play this, who do you think? Have you heard this yet? Do you know what he says?
No, I haven't heard it. So this is going to be interesting.
So before I play this, who would you guess he's going to say? He lists 3 names. Who would you guess are the 3 players before I play the soundbite?
Maybe Marcus Smart.
Okay.
I feel like he seemed like he got under the Warriors' skin a little bit in that.
Okay, that's one.
And because like there's also recency, but all time, I mean, the thing is like Steph's career has been so long at this point. Like, who was around back a decade ago?
It's 2009 is when Stephen Curry entered the NBA. So you're right.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, dude, what about 13, 14 years ago? Like,
you should think about 13, 14 years ago, because he does go back.
Really? All right. I don't know. Just tell me.
Think way back. Think back to those early days. Like, so who the best defenders in the NBA were back then? Because he taps into the time machine. So come on, just give me a guess. Throw a couple more names out. Who else do you think, Steph? You listen, Marcus Smart. Good guess.
I don't know.
Who are the other 2?
I don't know. From back in, from like 2010?
9. Even 2009. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I'll play it right now. It's because I can't see it because I already listened to it. But here is hold on, what am I doing here? Okay, so here is Stephen Curry revealing to the Today Show who his picks are. Well, here it is. Who his picks are for who? I'm sorry, not who his picks. Who, in his opinion, are the toughest defenders he has ever faced in his illustrious career? Here's Stephen Curry.
How about the toughest defender to play against?
There's a group of 3 that always, the light bulb went off when they were on the court. It's Jrue Holiday, Tony Allen, and Ron Artest. Actually, I didn't get to play too many games against him, but he had the strongest hands you've ever seen in your life. If you put the ball around him, he'd just smack it right out of your hand.
You're muted.
Sorry. That didn't surprise me. Thank you. That didn't surprise me at all. Tony Allen is notorious. I mean, to me, he's going to go down as one of the greatest defenders ever. I always sing Ron Artest praises. To me, he's an unsung hero of those 2 Lakers title teams. I mean, he was the Draymond Green for Kobe Bryant in terms of the enforcer, the mentally tough, semi-crazy individual. What are your thoughts on who Steph mentioned there?
Those were interesting. I guess I just didn't really think of, for example, like Ron Artest, because he's a forward. I was trying to think in terms of guards or point guards who would have been more matched up with Steph physically, although, most teams throw the kitchen sink, whoever can stop Steph. But I wasn't even thinking along those lines. So that's interesting. But yeah, he was, I agree. He was underrated, I think, and a great defender. So interesting, though. I just those weren't the names that would have come to mind, at all.
Yeah. Jrue Holiday was a bit of a surprise, too. I mean, his prowess is well known, but I've never really seen Jrue Holiday lock down Steph. I don't know. I don't recall ever
seeing. I've never noticed any kind of because to me, I remember specifically, I was God, watching that Celtics series and be Marcus Smart just won't go away. But I'm trying to think of that. I mean, I guess apparently Holiday did something, but I'm I don't feel like anything stands out, Yeah.
But Jrue Holiday is a phenomenal defender. He is absolutely. It brings up an interesting point. I've been arguing for years that Draymond Green to me is grossly underrated as a defender. Might be a weird thing to say given everyone knows how good of a defender he is. But he only has 1 Defensive Player of the Year award. I feel like he got routinely screwed over by Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert to me is so overrated, both as a defender and as a player overall. To me, it's blasphemy that Rudy Gobert has 3 Defensive Player of the Years to just 1 for Draymond Green. Draymond Green is just not recognized enough as a defensive player. I really believe that he is going to go down as one of the 3 greatest defenders of all time. He's one of the very few players in the NBA in its history who can guard 1 through 5, right? That is just so hard to
Yeah.
find. Do you agree with that sentiment? What are your thoughts on what I just said, Kylen?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Draymond Green should be a Hall of Famer. I think he should go down as one of the best defenders in history because of what you said. I mean, the versatility is something that you don't see in the NBA. He can play the small ball five. He can lock down guys out on the perimeter. So I would agree with everything you said. That I don't know though, because I do feel like he does get a lot of praise for his defending. So I don't know if he's overrated per se, but I think that he needs to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And I do think that he will go down as one of the greatest defenders in the game for sure.
Yeah, and the reason why, again, I say that, you're right. Everyone recognizes him in terms of how good of a defender he is, except for the media members who vote at the end of every season. Just having just one Defensive Player of the Year award to me just really is
Yeah.
an insult. I'm trying to look up like how many Defensive Player of the Year awards he's won total. I'm trying to look that up. Here it is right here. So he's a two-time All NBA selection. That's actually fascinating. And then
I thought he only won it once. Did he?
Correct. He's
only won
won
Defensive
the
Player of the Year, but he's been All NBA. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Yeah, the two All NBA selections are actually like, I just saw that looking it up, and that's I forgot about that. That's incredible. But he won the Defensive Player of the Year award in 2017. He's an 8-time NBA All Defensive selection, 4 times on the first team in 2015, 16, 17, and then 2021. And then 4 times he was on the second team, 2018, 19, 22, 20, 23. The part where I guess I'm saying he's underrated is to have just one Defensive Player of the Year award, that's blasphemy. And 2, 2018, he was on the second team. 2019, 2022, 2023. Like, who is deserving of going on the first team ahead of him? Like, that's why I'm saying, like, despite the fact that he's universally recognized for being an incredible defender, how is he not getting the first team every single year? How does he only have one Defensive Player of the Year award? I don't know.
Who are some of the other players who won Defensive Player of the Year in like during the championship run? I'm just curious. Like, was it if it was egregious in terms of Draymond being overlooked?
That's a great question. Well, like I said, I know Rudy Gobert won the award, I believe, 3 times, and regardless of what those years were, I feel like those are stolen from Draymond Green. All right, so I have the list right here. Since Draymond Green started playing, in fact, why don't we get to the list when we come back? Got to give some love to a sponsor of ours. That'll be our official tease. And the sponsor is, of course, FanDuel. Kylen, do you know what the line is for tonight? If someone wants to bet, they want to use the FanDuel Sportsbook. Any clues on how big of a favorite the U.S. is? Like, and if you don't know for certain, what would you guess the line is for the U.S. match tonight?
I'm trying to look it up as fast as I can. I mean, definitely, if I had to guess, like 400 maybe would be the U.S.
Okay. So they'd be like a minus 400.
Yeah, minus 400. Sorry, minus 400. Let me look.
I like that. Well, while you're doing that, I'll dive into FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. You can take first swing. It's baseball season right now. At betting on Major League Baseball on FanDuel, and you can get up to 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you can land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run of the game. And all of that is on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. And it's not just baseball you can bet on. It's also World Cup soccer. Kylen, do you have the line?
Yeah, I have the line. All right, folks, if you want to bet on the U.S. Women's National Team game against Portugal, huge group stage matchup, elimination on the line, Portugal plus 1,200, U.S. minus 410, a draw is plus 420. I'm putting my money on the U.S. Women's National Team. They rise to the occasion. They know that their backs are against the wall in this situation. They're going to come out and win. They're the favorites for a reason. They have a better lineup from top to bottom. Portugal has never, first of all, played in the World Cup until this year, or this is their first year, and they've never advanced. So U.S. is everything in their favor. However, the spread is minus 1.5 U.S., and I don't feel great about that because the U.S. has been struggling to score goals quite a bit throughout this tournament. I mean, at least through those first 2 games, they struggled against the Netherlands. They created a ton of chances but couldn't finish. Then against Vietnam, they scored 3 goals but took 28 shots, which is not a good ratio at all in professional soccer. So I would go with the under on the spread, but I would put my money on the U.S. And FanDuel is the way to go.
And by the way, great call on the minus 400. You were barely off there. Retzel is asking if the U.S. women's team is the top seed, if that's a thing.
So coming into the tournament, they were ranked first in the FIFA World Ranking. So there are rankings that are updated throughout the season based on the way teams finish in international friendlies and different competitions throughout the year. They do like a She Believes International Cup. And they were ranked 1 coming into the tournament. So Portugal was somewhere in the 20s. Vietnam was 32. Netherlands was ranked 9th coming into the tournament.
There and real quick, my question: if they draw, are they going to advance, or do they have to win?
If they draw, they will advance.
Okay, so they just have to tie or win. Okay, so all right, that's
because
a little relieving.
They beat Vietnam by more than Portugal beat Vietnam. So if they were to tie, they should. Well, Portugal lost anyway. So I'm pretty sure they advance if they tie. They advance if they tie. I know that much.
Well, and there's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball and World Cup soccer
yes,
than
what
FanDuel.
Asen said is true. There aren't really seeds in the World Cup. Sorry. There aren't really seeds in the World Cup, but just if you want to look at the world rankings and where the teams are stacking up, they do release one like right before the tournament starts.
Right. There's seedings for each individual draw, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't know, but I could even be wrong on that, to be honest. But regardless, you can bet on it. On that, Major League Baseball, and so much more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball and World Cup Soccer.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. For the everydayers, follow us on Twitter. The program is still there. At Locked On Dubs. We announce all our upcoming shows, our guests. We had no idea when we were going live today, so sorry for not tweeting that beforehand. This was a fairly impromptu show. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills. Super easy. Her name. So here are the recent award winners for the Defensive Player of the Year. In 2012, it was Tyson Chandler. Draymond Green was not a starter yet at that point. 2013 was Marc Gasol. I wonder what he's doing these days. I mean,
seriously.
I feel like he's still playing the NBA. 2014 is Joakim Noah. That's an interesting one. 2015 and 16. And there's no argument for me for this one. I do think Kawhi Leonard, he wanted both those years.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I do think he was a smidge better than Draymond Green. But then 2017, Draymond Green won the award. Now, where I think Draymond was robbed was 2018 and 2019, where they gave the award to Rudy Gobert. No. I'm sorry. No, that's asinine. Rudy Gobert, like, regardless of his block numbers or whatever you're basing that,
he won it again after that, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He also won in 2020. Giannis Antetokounmpo won it. And look, that fine, but then make sure at least Draymond's getting first team all defense in those years. Like in 2020, for example, he was not even on any all defensive selection. All the 2020 was an awful year, so maybe that kind of makes sense. But regardless, 2021. Rudy Gobert won it again. Just utterly asinine.
That's what I was just thinking of. Because I feel like in 2021, I was like, really? Again?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know what the hell our media counterparts are thinking. And the 2022 Marcus Smart, this last year, Jaren Jackson Jr. won it. Yeah, so one Defensive Player of the Year award is just not cool. Not cool at all. So any last thoughts before we move on Draymond Green's defensive prowess, Kylen?
No, I mean, I think he's still in great form in his defensive efforts, which is pretty incredible given that he's getting up there in age. Is Draymond 35 now? How old is he? 33?
33 going on 34 this year.
Okay, I would say he turns 34. I always forget just because like him, Clay, and Steph are all like lined up right in that like mid-30s range. But
Yeah.
I mean, he's still, is really top-notch physically, I think, for being in his mid-30s. So good on him.
Yeah, that back problem, which really concerned me, shockingly, was not much of a concern this last year.
Yeah.
I think he missed one game because of like calf tightness. We never really found out if that was related to his back.
He was healthy overall.
Absolutely right. And I'm totally with AC that the media can be really lazy in terms of their votes. And I mean, just this last year, for example, there was a whole brouhaha surrounding Mark Jackson, who did not put Nikola Jokic in his top 5 in MVP voting, and then just said he forgot. That was his reasoning.
Did you see today that Mark Jackson got let go?
Well, I was going to get into that next. Yeah.
Oh, you were. Stop it.
Yeah, it's all right. It's okay. It's no big deal. Real quick, before we get into that,
I knew that was coming.
No big deal. But I'm very curious here.
I spoiled our own show that I knew about.
But Ginji Gok writes, Dray is good at defense, but not a top 5 defensive player. Ginji, if he's not a top 5 defensive player, who are the 5 players you're putting ahead of him? I wholeheartedly do not agree with that sentiment. I don't understand. First of all, like Ginji, he can guard Anthony Davis. I don't know where you're getting that from. If you're referring to the most recent season in that Lakers series, look, Dray had his hands full. Dray's like one of the only bigs on this entire team. He wasn't matched up with Draymond he wasn't matched up with
Dray was the only player who was even semi-effective on AD.
Exactly.
Remember, the Warriors had to switch to putting Dray at the 5 because he was the only one who could slow Anthony Davis down.
Exactly.
So it wasn't actually Draymond's fault when AD initially came out in that first game and dropped like 30-20 or whatever his ridiculous stat line was. That's mostly because Draymond wasn't guarding him the entire game. When they switched, it definitely helped.
You're absolutely right. And AB Prep Boy 33 writes that Anthony Davis scored on him very easily. The Warriors lost to a 7th seed. But to put that on Draymond when he was surrounded by diminutive players, there was no size around him. There was no other elite defensive players around him. Andrew Wiggins was not himself. Gary Payne II was not himself. Oftentimes you had lineups where Kevon Looney and Draymond were not even on the court together. For anyone who thinks he's not a top 5 defensive player and he can't guard 7-footers, just look back a year earlier and look at what he did on Nikola Jokic in the playoffs. I mean, he actually held his own. Look at how he's handled Anthony Davis every other year, except for this last season. Now, if you want to make the argument that Draymond's regressing, maybe that's a whole other discussion. But to sit here and say that he's not a top 5 defender and that he can't guard bigs, I don't buy that at all. There's a reason why the Warriors, despite all of Draymond's antics, repeatedly re-sign him, repeatedly put up with his behavior, is because of how amazing of a defensive player he is. If there's one thing about Draymond, Kylen, that really is puzzling to me, and I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this in all honesty, and I'd love to actually get your thoughts on this. Until this last season, Draymond Green was your primary ball handler offensively on this team. He was the main person who would bring the ball up the court. His usage rate, I should probably look that up. I haven't done that recently, but his usage rate was normally really high because he was the primary facilitator for this offense. This last season, and I brought this up with a few other people just out of the blue because I've been thinking about it more and more, and it just doesn't make sense. This last season, we did not see Draymond handle the ball as much as he used to. I don't know, Stephen Curry picked up the slack a lot more. You even saw Klay Thompson handling the ball a lot more. I don't know why that is. Did you notice the same thing? And if you did, why do you think that is? That's one thing I'm very puzzled about. I'm certainly going to look into that this year. But what are your thoughts on Draymond not handling the ball as much offensively?
That's a curious stat and a curious point. Thinking about it, I feel like one of the factors is that the Warriors were really looking for Jordan Poole to try to lead the second unit. Because that's one thing that I feel like the Warriors have experimented with as well, was staggering Steph and Draymond, possibly having Draymond run the floor in the non-Steph minutes, having Draymond try to get the second unit going. But then it's that's what we signed Jordan Poole for. He's supposed to be running the offense. So I just would be curious to see if Jordan Poole's ball handling went up at all in light of Draymond Green's going down. Because for whatever reason, I feel like late in games, every game, I was like, why is Jordan Poole bringing the ball up? Why is this happening? Because something always seemed to go wrong. There was a crazy turnover, the ball bouncing off his leg or something happening. I feel like during critical points in the game, so many times this season, I was like, why is Jordan Poole bringing up the ball? And then you also had Ty Jerome, who stepped in and took on a pretty big role. I know you're thrilled to hear about that. But I just wonder if that also could have been a factor, because when Steph was hurt, and even when Steph wasn't hurt, I mean, the Warriors maxed out on their usage of Ty Jerome, and, you know, he was very clearly a ball handler and a one. It's not like he was playing off ball. And for whatever reason, Steve Kerr loved him. Steve Kerr loved Ty Jerome. He loved Anthony Lamb. Ty Jerome, I feel like, did run the offense quite a bit more than any other two-way player you saw around the league. So I wonder if that could be part of it. And I don't know that was a good thing. But so that,
I'm
as far as possibly why, that would be my only thoughts, is that like Jordan Poole was handling the ball more, Ty Jerome was handling the ball more. Obviously, Steph typically is handling the ball quite a bit, but possibly those other two cut into Draymond bringing the ball up and running the offense as much as he did. But I like Draymond running the offense. He's good vision. He's a good passer. And he's not a ball hog in terms of dribbling. Like, okay, I was going to say this is terrible. Not like a Jordan Poole. Not to say that he's a ball hog, but sometimes he dribbles too much. Ty Jerome, I don't think was bad, but I like Draymond Green actually running the offense. I think that's one of the special things about his skill set, is the fact that he's so versatile and can do that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think I found his usage rate from StatMuse. I'm just curious to see what the comparison is. So his usage rate in this last season was 13.3, and what that means is, just in case you're curious about what usage means, it's a percentage of the total amount of time he was on the court where the ball was actually in his hands, where he's actually using the ball. That's the word usage. So Draymond Green's usage rate in 2022-2023 was 13.3. A year earlier, the year they won the title, it was 14.3. 2020-2021, it was 13.1. So that was comparable to this year. 2020, when the whole team was injured except for him, and they were playing guys like Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III most of the year, it was up to 15.8. But it was really high in those championship years. So their first title that they won, Draymond Green's usage rate was 17.2. The 73 win season, his usage rate was 18.8. The first year with Kevin Durant here, his usage rate was 16.2. The second year of Kevin Durant's tenure with the Warriors, 17. Well, wait. First year with Kevin Durant, 16.2. Second year with Kevin Durant, 17.2. And again, 17.2 compared to 13.3 this last year. So it has gone down. And I totally agree with you, though. I do think the Jordan Poole factor played a big part. Ty Jerome might have played a part, having these traditional point guards, because that's one thing. Like, if you look at the Warriors title teams, they didn't really have like a traditional point guard on their roster for a lot of those years. That's a huge reason why, like, when Ty Jerome was getting all these minutes, I just kept asking myself, and, bring this up on the show, like, why? Yeah. Like, the Warriors have never had or needed this traditional point guard whose primary skill is ball handling, passing, facilitating the offense. They've usually had Draymond Green picking that slack up, and you're not losing anything by him doing that, because you have this exceptional defender on the other side of the court. So you might be right. Maybe it was Jordan Poole. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, it did go down though. So what are your thoughts, by the way, on Mark Jackson? Now that we can jump into that, unless you have any final thoughts. Sorry, I don't mean to move on without.
No, I think you hit it. I think it'll be interesting to see what Draymond's usage is coming up this season based on the way the roster is constructed, because now you expect, speaking of traditional point guards, Chris Paul to be on ball quite a bit. So be curious to see if that impacts Draymond running the floor. But yeah, I want to talk about Mark Jackson. So sorry. Go ahead.
What are your thoughts on that? So Mark Jackson's out at ESPN for some reason. They announced his departure like a month after they let go of Jeff Van Gundy. I don't understand the timing of it. Maybe they thought it could work in keeping him. So the speculation from what I read, at least through like tabloidish type publications like the New York Post, is that they wanted him to man the number 2 broadcasting unit with Mark Jones. And the number 1 ESPN lineup is now going to be Mike Breen as your play-by-play, Doris Burke and Doc Rivers handling the color commentating. And I don't know if Mark Jackson didn't want to be part of the second unit. I don't know if they thought about it and decided, nah, this isn't worth it. He maybe makes too much money. I have no idea. What are your thoughts on Doris Burke and Doc Rivers becoming the new number 1 broadcasting unit, replacing Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson?
I am very excited to see Doris Burke be elevated in this way. If Doris Burke were to call the NBA championship this year, which seems like the writing's on the wall, she would be the first woman to ever call a championship in the United States in a professional sport.
Wow.
That is unbelievable. I can't believe that it's taken this long in the US to reach this point. There are tons of women who are talented and knowledgeable in broadcasting, and Doris Burke's one of them. I mean, she knows the game of basketball. She played herself. She was a coach for a long time. She's been an analyst in the NBA for decades. So if there's anyone who has worked hard, who knows the game, who deserves it to be a woman to blaze a trail, it's certainly Doris Burke. So that's one thing I am really happy about, is seeing her be elevated and possibly being on the call for the NBA finals. Like, I just think that's a huge moment for women in sports that shouldn't be overlooked. So appreciate Doris Burke. I really like her. She actually went on Andre Iguodala's podcast, Point Forward, a few months ago, 2-3 months ago, and he did a really good interview with her. Andre did. That was fascinating. And she talked about a lot of big moments in her career and, about how nervous she was. She said she still gets imposter syndrome and gets nervous before broadcast sometimes when she has a big broadcast. So for example, like an NBA playoff game or whatever, that, I just thought it was really fascinating to hear that she's kind of just like the rest of us, even though Doris Burke has been working for ESPN and on national broadcasts for so long. She just seems like a really nice, down-to-earth person. I don't know her personally, but I know a lot of connections that know her, and everyone says that she's the best of the best. So happy to see this moment for women. Happy to see this moment for her. I think it's crazy. I mean, Mark Jackson has worked for ESPN for a long time, 15 years. Yeah. But a lot of shakeups happening across the network. So, I mean, you never want to see all these people getting laid off, because it's beyond just the big names. It's beyond even just talent. There's people behind the scenes getting laid off who rely on these jobs. So that's always an unfortunate thing to see. But on the silver lining side, I think it's going to be cool to see Doris Burke on the finals.
Absolutely. I had an old friend and we were also old colleagues for a long time. And she was a very high up individual at ESPN. She left not too long ago, and she made a good point to me, and also heard this sentiment shared on Bill Simmons's podcast, which is that every time ESPN goes through these layoffs, every time they make these big decisions, where you see turnover in terms of on-camera personnel, especially, the unfortunate part about all that is a lot of the people behind the scenes, and especially those who are making the big decisions, let's say for ESPN's programming, like the individuals producing the shows, the individuals who are deciding who's going to be on camera, like the individual who thinks Kendrick Perkins is talented. Those people are still there, whereas the people getting laid off are in front of the camera. And Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson, I mean, they were revered and known as the #1 broadcast team in the NBA. I'm totally with you, by the way. I love Doris Burke. I have no issue with her being in the #1 team. And I respect her opinions. And she has a lot of experience as well. Like, she has absolute credibility as a player. But when it comes to ESPN, like, their NBA coverage sucks. Like, I'm not a fan of theirs, especially. I feel like if ESPN did not, if we as consumers did not have TNT and the product they produce, and more specifically the NBA on TNT, and it's not just their primary panel, like it's not just the Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaq, Ernie Johnson panel. It's also like the Tuesday night program. It's also the NBA TV content, which is a direct correlation with the TNT crew. It's all under one umbrella now, and you see what they do, and it's fun. It's not rigid. They're picking talent who is actually knows what the hell they're talking about. They're, if they decide to say controversial things, they're not just saying it for the sake of getting attention, but they're actually they're substantive. And I see these two side by side, and I look at ESPN, and it's just amateur hour. And I don't know if it's ever going to change until they actually replace the decision makers behind the scenes who are also making big money. So that's my opinion on it, strictly my opinion. What do you think, Kylen? What are your sentiments in terms of ESPN's production as a whole, and maybe more specifically with the NBA?
I love TNT. I think that they set the gold standard. Like, that's my favorite NBA coverage to watch by far. Their main panel, I think, is second to none. Gosh, what was it? I was watching a documentary about them. Trying to think what network was on, but there was a whole just like a mini, not a full movie, but a whole documentary basically about how they formed that group. It was fascinating. And the chemistry that they have and they've built on that show is just insane. Like, it's fun. There are takes that are entertaining, but not so far that they're clickbaity. You know what I mean? When someone gives a take and you're like, this just seems fake. It seems like you're reaching for something. Like, I don't feel that way about the takes that are coming from Shaq or from Charles Barkley says stuff, and Kenny seems very genuine, but he doesn't give the impression that, like you said, he's saying something for attention. He's saying something, I don't know, to be corny. I think it's fun banter. I think it's funny. I think it's fun. I enjoy it. I think their calls are great. Like all the play-by-play broadcasters they use, like you said, they also have a kind of a secondary crew they use on the desk. Like, I agree. I think TNT has done well in, like you said, just marrying the entertainment side with being informative, and not having it be so stiff and so uptight. And, I know that's something that, like I said, this documentary I watched, man, I gotta look up what that was, but that was what they set out to do. Like, they wanted to do it a little bit different, and they wanted to make it more fun, and they gave talent the freedom to say, hey, if you guys have ideas, if the producers have ideas, let's just go for it. Let's go all in on the show. Let's do something unique and not make it so stuffy. And to me, they've been super successful in doing that. So that's my favorite NBA coverage. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Absolutely. And it just reminded me, the NBA on TNT has this producer. I forgot his name. He's like the short dude. They call him like Mighty Dog or Super Dog.
Yeah.
I have his number. I've been trying for almost a year to get him on this show. It just occurred to me now is the perfect time. There's nothing going on. So I'm going to try to get him on. I also didn't realize we've been talking for 37 minutes, Kylen.
I know. Cyrus, we got to go.
How did we do that? That's incredible. We had absolutely nothing on the agenda, and we're 37 minutes later. All right. So I guess we're done. You're going to your watch party. Do you want to promote that one more time for people watching live? There's going to be a watch party. It's down in San Jose, though. It's going to be at PayPal Park. I don't know where you all are viewing or listening from, but there is going to be one in PayPal Park. There's going to be food, drinks on sale, and stuff like that. So that's always cool to watch the U.S. Women's National Team game. And then there also is going to be a watch party in San Francisco at the San Francisco Athletic Club that's being hosted by Kick It 365 Soccer and Bay FC, the new women's professional team. So if anyone's looking to get out and do something tonight while this game's going on, both in SF at the San Francisco Athletic Club and PayPal Park in San Jose are going to have gatherings. Woo! Love it.
Go Dubs.
Love it.
Go U.S. Women's National Team.
Go U.S. And it's Underdog is the end of it. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get him on the show soon. Because I met him. I crossed paths with him a couple times. And the last time I saw him, I was like, dude, you want to come on? And he was all into it. I got his number. We've been texting back and forth, but it's been a few months. And this just reminded me. Kylen, have fun on your watch party tonight. Thanks as always for helping 30+ minutes fly by. And we'll be back at this soon. We're good, right? Are we done? Anything else?
Yeah, we're out.
All right. Have a great night, folks. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.
I'm always waiting for you.